So, you know that feeling. You walk in the door after work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got these like great ideas floating around. Maybe tonight's the night for that healthy meal, or you'll definitely get out for that walk.
Oh, yeah. Or finally crack open that book.
Exactly. That book that's just been sitting there. And then, it's like all that energy just vanishes.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you're, scrolling on your phone, or maybe you've watched half a season of some show you didn't even mean to start. Does that sound familiar?
It really does. It's a super common thing, that gap between what we want our evenings to be and, well, what actually happens.
Totally, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. How can you stop those valuable hours after work from just kind of evaporating?
And maybe turn them into like a genuinely good part of your day.
Yes. We're looking at ways to, boost your well-being. And the really interesting thing is our insights today, they're coming from an episode of the English Leap podcast. It was called Change Your Life with This Routine. And the hosts, Aaron and Evan, they shared some really relatable stuff, their own struggles, but also some pretty practical advice.
And what I found interesting was their focus.
Yeah.
They really honed in on the evening.
Right.
We hear so much about morning routines, optimizing the morning, but the evening often gets ignored.
Completely. So yeah, our goal here in this deep dive is pretty straightforward. We want to pull out the best, most actionable bits from that podcast.
The stuff you can actually use.
Exactly. To help you kind of shape your evenings more intentionally, build a bit more satisfaction into those hours, and importantly, set yourself up for a better tomorrow.
And it's not about like super strict rules or adding a ton more stuff to do.
No, just simple shifts, really. Powerful ones, hopefully. Okay, so let's get into it. The English Leap hosts, they kicked off by highlighting something key, the often underestimated power of our evenings.
Yeah, they made a really good case for shifting some of that intense focus we usually put on mornings, shifting it towards the after-work hours instead.
Mm-hmm.
They used this great analogy, actually. They compared evenings to the backstage crew.
Oh, I liked that.
Yeah, the crew that gets everything ready for the next day's show,
Yeah.
And if that backstage area is messy and chaotic...
Then the show tomorrow is probably going to suffer, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just makes sense. It affects how smoothly things run the next day.
That really hit home for me, and they talked about realizing their own evenings were acting as a sort of, what do they call it? A silent saboteur.
Yeah, undermining their efforts.
Right. They were doing all the morning stuff, but the evenings were just kind of drifting and draining them, undoing the good work. It wasn't until they really consciously looked at their after-work habits that things started to click.
And that brings up a really fundamental question for anyone listening. What's the real point of your evening hours? The big takeaway here isn't just about killing time until bed. It's a genuine chance to actively build the energy, the mindset you want for the next day.
So it's like intentional groundwork.
Intentional groundwork, exactly. Not just filling a void.
That's a really useful way to think about it. And it ties straight into their next idea, which I found really practical. They called it creating a proper curtain call for the workday.
Right, not just collapsing onto the couch.
No, it's about having a deliberate, gentle transition.
And the things they suggested were so simple, weren't they?
Totally.
Like putting on some music, maybe spending 2 minutes tidying your desk.
Or just changing out of your work clothes, little things.
Tiny actions, but they act like little rituals. They signal to your brain, okay, work mode off, personal time on.
Right. For one of the hosts, Evan, I think, it was changing clothes and just scribbling a quick thought in a journal. Not big tasks.
No, definitely not.
It's just these small, consistent things that draw a line. And they said when you do that regularly, you start to feel lighter, more purposeful as you step into your evening, not just drifting.
And if you think about it, these little transition rituals, they help create clearer mental boundaries. Work stays at work, home is home, which can really cut down on that feeling of always being on. It lets you actually relax or, properly engage with whatever you do choose to do in the evening.
And speaking of engaging, they then got into structuring your evenings to kind of match your natural energy flow.
Ah, yes, the 3-course meal.
Exactly. Instead of seeing it as this big, empty block of time that just disappears.
Which so often does.
Right. They suggested breaking it down, like a delicious 3-course meal, as they put it.
It's a catchy analogy. The idea is to split the evening into maybe mini zones or power blocks.
Tailored to your energy level.
Yeah. So the first course, the appetizer, is all about consciously unwinding. recharging.
Gentle stuff.
Really gentle, like a short walk, maybe some calming music, a bit of stretching. The key is no forced productivity here.
Right, just letting the day's stress melt away a bit, no pressure.
Yeah.
Then comes the main course.
Which is more about growth or creativity.
Yeah, they figured once you've relaxed a bit, your mind is actually more open to things like reading or working on a hobby, maybe learning something new.
And it feels less forced then, doesn't it? More satisfying because it flows naturally after the unwinding phase. You're not fighting yourself to do it.
Exactly. And then finally, the dessert.
Which is about connection or reflection.
Could be quality time with family, friends, or maybe just some quiet journaling, looking back on the day, ending it feeling, fulfilled, not just zoned out.
Yeah, ending on a positive, conscious note.
And I think the value of that framework for anyone listening is it shifts your mindset. You start creating evenings you actually look forward to.
Which makes tomorrow seem less daunting too.
Totally. Now, alongside these power blocks, they also talked about something else, not getting bogged down in rigid plans, but instead subtly shaping your environment.
Oh, this is a great one. So simple, but effective.
Right.
It's basically just making the stuff you want to do easier to start and maybe making the time wasters a little bit harder to get to.
Yeah. They use the example of leaving a guitar out in the living room, not packed away in its case.
So you just see it and you're more likely to pick it up.
Exactly. It's like, keeping fruit on the counter instead of cookies. Make the good choice the easy choice.
One of them mentioned keeping his journal right by his bed. Made it effortless to write a little before sleep.
So the takeaway there is just think. How can you tweak your space to gently nudge you towards the things you actually want to do in the evening? Less willpower needed.
It's smart. Designing your environment to support your goals creates a natural flow.
Yeah. And okay, let's talk about that feeling after work. I'm just too tired. We all feel that, right?
Oh, definitely. The energy slump.
But the English Leap hosts, they kind of challenged that idea a bit. They suggested maybe it's not always a complete lack of energy.
But maybe more like scattered energy, unfocused.
Exactly. That's the distinction they made. They pointed out, look, if something genuinely exciting pops up, you suddenly find the energy, don't you?
That's true. Which suggests it's not always that the tank is empty.
Right. Maybe it's just that the energy is being sort of frittered away on things like mindless scrolling or distractions that don't actually recharge you.
Yeah, things that drain rather than fill.
They even timed themselves doing stuff. And they found that just 20 minutes focused on something creative often left them feeling more energized than hours of just clicking around online. So it's not about forcing yourself to do something huge when you're wiped out. It's more about channeling whatever energy you do have into one meaningful thing, even for a short burst. See how it shifts your mood.
That really highlights the power of being intentional, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Choosing where to put even small bits of energy can make a big difference in how you feel overall. Fights that fatigue.
And that leads us right into talking about, well, the elephant in the room for many evenings. Streaming, Netflix, all those platforms.
The evening time vacuum for many.
Huh. Yeah. And look, they weren't saying entertainment is bad. It's wonderful. But it can so easily become this default escape, right? And suddenly your whole evening is gone.
Without you even really choosing it.
Yeah.
It's that difference between intentionally deciding, okay, I'm going to relax with this show, versus just falling into it out of habit or avoidance.
Yeah, they mentioned getting stuck in the autoplay trap. We've all been there.
Oh yeah. One episode rolls into the next and suddenly it's midnight.
Exactly. So the issue isn't the platform, it's the mindlessness sometimes. Their tip was simple. Try being more deliberate. Maybe choose things with a clear end.
Like a movie or a documentary.
Right, something that finishes, it feels more satisfying maybe, and you're less likely to feel afterwards like, oh, where did the time go? It's intentional entertainment, not just passive consumption.
That's actually very practical. You enjoy it, it ends, you consciously move on, it frees up time and mental energy for other things.
And speaking of freeing things up and making evenings better, another great strategy they covered, habit stacking.
Yeah. Love this one.
It sounds fancy, but it's basically just piggybacking good habits onto routines you already have, instead of trying to carve out totally new slots in your evening.
And the genius of it is, it uses the pathways already built in your brain, so the new habit sticks much more easily.
So simple. Like listening to a podcast while you brush your teeth. You're already doing the teeth thing.
Exactly. Or one of them mentioned using the time while cooking dinner, something he does anyway, to mentally run through 3 things he's grateful for.
See? Adds mindfulness to a routine task. No extra time block needed.
It's about gently layering good stuff onto what's already there.
Yeah.
Kicks the pressure off. And they said doing these little stacks consistently, it really changed the whole feel of their evenings.
From chaotic to calmer, more purposeful.
Exactly. Calmer, more purposeful. And that sense of calm, they said, sets you up perfectly for their final and maybe most powerful evening practice.
Which was evening reflection.
Yeah. Just taking a brief moment at the end of the day to sort of process things. It's like hitting a mental reset button.
Letting go of the day's clutter before sleep.
Pretty much. They suggest asking yourself just 3 simple questions before bed. What gave me energy today?
Okay.
What drained me today?
Important.
And what am I proud of today?
Nice. And they stress it takes like, what, a minute? 2 minutes max?
Barely any time. But the payoff in terms of clarity, peace of mind. One of them said he was genuinely shocked how much clearer his head felt.
Like a quick mental tidy up.
Exactly. And over time, that can lead to better sleep, definitely more focused mornings, potentially a better life, really.
It gives you that closure on the day, doesn't it? So you can actually let it go and face tomorrow fresh.
Precisely. You acknowledge it, learn from it, release it. You're not carrying yesterday's baggage into today.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered some really, really useful strategies there, all coming from that English Sleep podcast episode. We really hope this gives you some solid tools.
Yeah, tools to take back your evenings, make them feel good again.
Absolutely. Experiment. See what clicks for you, what fits your life.
Remember, even tiny adjustments, if you do them consistently, can make a huge difference over time.
Definitely. And maybe here's a final little thought to leave you with. Beyond just making your evenings nicer right now, how might intentionally designing this specific part of your day, how might that ripple outwards, positively affect other parts of your life, maybe even help with your bigger long-term goals?
That's a great question to ponder. The ripple effect.
Yeah, something to think about. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
We really hope these insights bring you some real value.